all out. Like he's that far gone where he's like, I'm not even gonna pretend anymore.
I mean, he needs to talk to Bill Bellamy from how to be a player.
I remember that movie.
Yeah.
He
So
just drove around all day long and visited different women's houses. I
yeah,
remember watching that in high school.
and then he got burned at the end, and then he's like, "No, I got burned."
I don't remember the end.
Yeah, I don't know why I remember that. And also like Booty Call too. What a crazy movie. There were like I miss those kind of films. But I don't. I just yeah, I guess with Chris Klein, like whenever you see him, you're like this something's aside from Election, right, where he is just wild. Well, and American Pie, he has a very earnest side. But I think the two strongest things about his performances in movies that I've seen a lot of his films, where he's either super earnest like an Election, where
Uh-huh.
he is just you know like remember how good he was in Election? You just liked him. I remember you watched it and you're like,
Yeah, he
man, this
nailed the
dude.
character.
Yeah,
You really bought into because he didn't even vote for himself in the actual election, right?
and like he comes across as a way that you actually believe it. And then when he was Oz in American Pie, the whole thing with Mena Suvari, like he was kind of the gentleman of the group. Like he actually liked singing in
Hmm.
that thing. But then I also like him when he has this manic bully energy to him because he's a pretty intimidating looking guy. And it's like when he started throwing fists and like just being evil, I kind of bought into it 100%. I liked it.
You know what I liked most about his performance? It was how good he was at delivering passive aggressive lines. Like, "Hey, whoa, take it easy there, Gretzky,"
Yeah.
or calling out Ryan Reynolds as his retainer, or like making fun of his sweater. He's like, "Oh, great sweater," or inviting the mom with him to the movie. He was really good at he was playing the game, and all these little subtle jabs at Ryan Reynolds' character I thought was great because it's a good passive aggressive line is more intriguing and nuanced than if you're just straight up rude.
Yeah, and he was sneaking him in there too. Like you know when someone's being rude to you, but you can't really prove it. But if you tell people they're being rude to you, they're like, "Yeah, just get over yourself." But they're like, "Look, he did it again." Like that's a Dusty Dinkleman classic. And also when
Yeah,
he's
they're
talking
so
about
subtle you don't know if he's being sincere or just being a jerk.
like inviting the mom, like that's good timing. And also too when he's like, "I find a resplendency in the simplicity of Nicholas Sparks' writing." It's just
It's a
uh
good use of the word resplendent.
But you know, I also like though his character too because it just shows sort of like the entitlement of how he became. Like he just started expecting things from his persona. So I like that they threw that in there. Like he became this guy, like this Joker guy. Hey, I put the time in. Like this is what I deserve. Like it was kind of good to have. You know what's interesting? We talked about Heat the other day on the podcast, and De Niro and Val Kilmer, they're all murderers, right?
Yeah.
But then you got Wainwright. What Wainwright? That's Rufus Wainwright. Man, who's the guy's name? I can't.
Is that the Irish piano player?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you have Waylon. Oh gosh, people are gonna kill me. I just watched this movie. But you have in their crew you have a serial killer who's a snitch too. And so it's like, oh, well yeah, De Niro and Kilmer murder guards, but you know what? They're not serial killing snitches, so they're not that bad. So then in this movie you have Brander who comes home who's just he's not a monster, but he's not a good dude. But then once you compare him to Dusty Dinkleman, Dinkleman who has like outwardly like he's Brander is not being himself and he's playing stupid games and he's reverting back to his childhood and just being an all-around idiot. But Dinkelman has like a malicious lying
Hmm.
side to him. So when you have Chris Brander compared to Dusty Dinkelman, you have a kind of like a nice way of creating a villain in it and taking your mind off Brander's shenanigans. Because
Oh, yeah. It's more excusable.
like when they go to Notebook, he's like, I'm gonna dress like a nice guy just so I can like win over. Like I'm gonna not be myself. I'm gonna like dress as like something else. So he's playing a really weird game. But then you
Well,
get
remember when he
Dinkelman.
came to that conclusion about being like a really nice guy? The dentist friend and the dental hygienist assistant were just rolling their eyes like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna go great."
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. And yeah, it would be fun to see Brander coming into town every 10 years and just causing tons of crap. Like, every
When
10
you
years,
come to town, you come back to town.
Brander rolls. But like Brander, he's doing all this stuff. But then like Dinkelman is just so evil that and he's evil that it creates it takes your mind off Brander and puts like, Dinkelman's the villain. then. Like Dinkelman's outplaying him. And then eventually, you know what's interesting? Once he
adds an element of stress too and competition.
No,
it raises the stakes.
Because he beats him up in the church, because then he starts becoming like Dinkelman. Like Dinkelman brings out the worst in him. And then like in the church, he's like, you're a game. And I think at that point he's like, oof, this was I'm Dinkelman territory right here. So like, yeah, that's where the character development I guess comes in. It's like Dinkelman brings it out of him because it's like, oof, I don't want to be this guy.
Yeah, you brought up a couple of good points there. You talked about the overachieving romantic rival who seems too good to be true.
15 fingers.
That is one of the many themes I really liked about this movie, and I'm so impressed with the writing because one, you've got, I think central theme is that feeling of unreciprocated love, or was it unrequited love? I think that's the main theme. But then you got the ugly duckling story. Then you have Christmas time, everything that goes into Christmas, and then you've got high school reunion of sorts. I mean, he hadn't been back in 10 years. 10 years, man. Oh, wait, that was Gross Point Blank. Yeah. But you've got like that feeling of like, okay, you go back to your hometown and how has everyone ended up? They had the football jock, you had the best friend, and you always have the kind of this drive inside of you that wants to rack and stack you against your high school peers. It's because you want to know how everyone kind of ends up. And then you have how the trauma that you experience in high school in one form or fashion stays with you the rest of your life. I mean, whatever happens in high school, that does stay with you for a long time, regardless of your situation. I'm convinced. So you've got all these different, and then you got the rom-com thing where boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy comes to, get her back at the end. So there's like 5 or 6 really cool themes that are stacked on top of each other that made a really unique mixture of a movie.
Yeah, I mean, he flies all the way back to California, then he goes back all the way to Jersey. That's some flights right there from Brander's side.
It was a red eye.
Yeah, that's true. Brander can sleep through it. He gets first class. Okay, Brander's 27, right? 27, 28. He's a millionaire. So
yes.
He leaves high school. Who knows what his grades are, right? So he leaves high school. He goes to university. He goes 4 years, right? Gets out of school 22. Then he, what? Does he get his master's? Does Brander get his master's?
I'm guessing that he was an intern throughout college and worked his way up.
And then he made like a good signing during that time. And then that's what made him hit big. So I think he interned. That's interesting. Because I was like,
it was a rapid rise to the top.
To have that house is that's a multi-million-dollar home he has in the hills there. So yeah, Brander pulled bank on that. The bubble's gonna burst though. What, 2008 around, by the time like piracy and Napster comes around, album sales go down, but then everyone I just watched a documentary called Dawn Raid about the New Zealand hip hop scene and how badly like Napster and all that killed their business because they stopped selling CDs and they got pirated a lot. So yeah, that's a completely different movie with him. Never mind. I would like to see Brander dealing with Napster. Sorry.
The sequel opportunities are endless from this movie. I mean, Samantha James spinoff, Chris Brander 2.0 with Napster.
And have we seen brothers like this? So you know what I liked in Beautiful Girls, which we talked about, is where you have David Arquette and Timothy Hutton as brothers, and they're not like outwardly antagonistic of each other, right? You know, sometimes when a brother comes home after 10 years, like David Arquette was just happy to see his bro. Like he was a waste case, but he was just like, hey man, like it's good to see you. In this one, I love their fights. I love their slaps.
They were actually slapping each other.
Yeah,
those
you
were
could tell.
Actual slaps.
Trips, like there's some insane physical comedy on here, but then they're eating cookies together, and like I love you, bro.
Is that I love you. I love you too.
Yeah, and like that was refreshing, I guess, because we don't get much of those relationships, right? You never really see that in. I don't think I've ever seen a brotherly relationship like this, and maybe it's not totally true, but I liked how he comes back and they just immediately start slapping each other.
When they first introduced the brother, he was walking into the house with a pair of some kind of tool for cutting chains and a street sign. Like he had just stolen a street sign from somewhere in the city. He brings it in. He gets excited. He slaps Ryan Reynolds on his way to sit next to Samantha James. I mean, it's a really good character introduction that this guy's a misfit.
Yeah.
Like, he's just out running around, stealing signs and slapping people.
Yeah, Julie Hagerty is a good, like, she's chill, but she doesn't know where he is at all during this, in all of his posters. No. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like the relationship too, how his brother actually helps him out, but he's 18, so he makes horrible mistakes. And I like that he calls him like a human void.
Ouch.
Yeah, remember when he said that to them? Like, and then they keep
I like
slapping.
the truce thing. Like the truce.
And then
they never honor the truce.
And they kick the door open and they screaming. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting brotherly relationship because it's like, oh, you haven't been home in 10 years. Like, what do you know? You don't know our family. Like, you haven't been working at the auto business, working all this time. Like, now you come back, think you're the golden boy. Now they just start slapping each other and eating cookies. And like their mom dotes on them. And they get sick tummies.
And they work together.
Yeah, they actually team up. So yeah, I like when this is quite a streamlined movie too. It's not the longest picture ever made, so I kind of appreciate how the thing just I mean, it's 96 minutes.
They packed a lot into 96 minutes. I was trying to calculate the pure number of slapstick moments or embarrassing moments, and I'm somewhere around 20 because they packed a lot in this movie.
I think
you had to do all these introductions, you had to set up the story, and you had a lot of cool characters that had room to breathe with their characters as well.
I think the best slapstick bit was when he got hit in the face with a puck, but then he got strapped to a gurney and it flipped upside down on his face. Like that?
Yeah.
I felt that.
Can I cover the hockey one for a second?
Yeah, go
so
for
I
it.
actually went through, and there's within that hockey scene, I'm counted 9 different slapstick moments just in that 5 minutes of the hockey, because they introduced him. He's falling. Because remember at the beginning of the movie when he saw the guy falling at the ice rink and the guy was trapped in the friend zone and he meets the girl and he says, "Oh, why are you talking to me when you're out with your boyfriend on the ice?" And she's like, "That's not my boyfriend." And it was total role reversal. Like he's out skating with Jamie Palomino, since we're going with the first and last names like they did in the movie. So he was falling. Then he tried to kiss Amy Smart, but he headbutted her. And then the kids made fun of him, and the kids were slashing him and fighting him during the game. Then he got hit in the mouth, and then the sled crashed. You felt that sled crash. I mean, that was a good bit where it reversed and he would land his face first. But then in the ambulance, Dusty was getting Jamie's number on a piece of paper that was on his chest, and he couldn't do anything about it. So he had to experience that. And then Dusty called him Gretzky. Like, "Oh, take it easy, Gretzky." And then he got hit in the junk with a bottle that flew off the shelf when they hit a bump. All of that in one hockey scene. I mean, that is jam packed with slapstick.
Yeah, because you know what I like about that, and this is gonna sound super obvious, but like they wrote that scene like that wasn't an improv. Like you can't improv that entire bit. Like they had to program that CO2 can to shoot out. Like you watch that CO2 can, it's just waiting. Like there's a special
I think someone pushed it.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out how they did it.
Yeah.
Someone must have had a hand behind there and just pushed it out.
Yeah, it's just waiting there, and you can see it pointed out. Like, but that's the gag. Like I like that. Like we're gonna put him in an ambulance. We're gonna put a clipboard on him. He's gonna make some faces, and then we're gonna drop a CO2 tank on his junk. Like it's I mean it's not the most in-depth humor ever, but I like that they wrote. Okay, this sounds crazy because it's screenwriting 101, but you have the beautiful house with all the decorations that gets destroyed. You have the hockey playing that comes back to haunt him later on. So I think that, you have Dusty playing a guitar, he plays a guitar later. I think that, as far as like a script, it is quite tight, I guess, in regards to what happens. Now, I have a question though, like, why should Jamie Palomino love Chris Brander? Like, they were friends in high school. She made that clear. And then he comes back and she's like, "Hey, you want to get coffee?" And he goes, "A date?" But like, she's just like, "Hey, I want to catch up with like my friend." It's like, why? Like, and then she's like, you know what I mean? Like, that's my one problem. Why does Jamie Palomino have to love Chris Brander?
I have a few theories, and a lot of this is speculation because I've seen the movie way too many times. But do you remember how when they were at the bar in the beginning and Darla kind of mouthed the words, "That's Chris Brander," when she was behind the bar, and she was like, "Holy shit, what happened?" And they also alluded to how she just got over a relationship and her dating life sucked. And at 27, I got the feeling, and they did mention it, that she wanted to have a family, she wanted to settle down, and I think it's that ugly duck